My name is Anna Buxton. I'm the manager of public engagement, and I'm just really happy to welcome you all to our second unpoetry event of the year. I'm going to turn it over shortly to Amy here to do all of the official introductions. My job here is to do some housekeeping, to let you all know about the museum, answer any questions, and let you know how things are going to go today. So you may notice behind Justine there we have some benches or some stools that you can grab. You might want to take those with us because we will be going through each room of the museum here and pause for some readings. So if you want to sit, you can do that. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of their surroundings as we tour through the museum. I don't see any large bags or anything, so that sounds great. We do have lockers in the front though if you do want to set your bags down. And any water bottles that you may have. As we are kind of a larger group moving through some smaller galleries too, just be aware of your surroundings. I know it's easy to get lost in the readings too, but we ask that you don't lean up against the wall, and we just make sure that there's a space for folks who are walking through. So we're gonna pay attention to our egresses and thoroughfares there. I think that is all of my super fun notes, setting us up for having a great time, and I'm going to turn it over to Amy here.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you so much, the Frye, for letting us occupy this space with some poetry. Thank all of you for coming. It makes me so happy to see all of you here. This is really wonderful. And then I also want to thank Eric for kind of getting this whole series started and for letting me have the reins to unpoetry for today. So thank you, Eric. This is a really beautiful opportunity that means a lot to me. So I'm going to do a brief introduction and then we'll start our tour and our reading. So whenever I go see live music, I immediately call my friend Mandy and I'm like, we gotta start a band. And whenever I go watch a play, I'm like, I want to take an improv class, or maybe I should write a screenplay or a script. Whenever I go to an art museum, I'm like, oh, I should get out my drawing stuff. Maybe I'll take a ceramics class. So this reading that we're having today, I think of it as a conversation between visual artists and writers. We, as the writers that are here today, experienced the incredible art in these exhibits. It's spoken to us, and we have spoken back to it in return, which is what you're going to hear today. I hope that the creative conversation that you'll hear on this poetry tour will inspire you to follow your own creative impulses. For me, writing isn't just about talent or about public recognition, it's about engagement and participation. It's about listening to ourselves as we're listening to others. I'm incredibly honored that Troy, Namaka, Jen, and Justine all agreed to share their work with us today. And after their readings, I hope that some of you will linger or come back to the Frye with a pencil and some paper to have your own conversations with the art here. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome. Welcome to Unpoetry at the Frye. So we're going to begin our reading with Troy Osaki, and we're going to start this way. So follow us.
Okay, welcome. Man, okay, who's excited for some poetry and museum time? Thank you, Frye Art Museum. Thank you to Unpoetry. Yeah, it's my first time doing anything kind of like this. My name is Troy Heehan, born and raised here in Seattle. Have some poems to share with you all, and I was able to come visit the exhibit with a few of the readers a few weeks ago, and this particular portion of the exhibit really stood out to me. Has anyone gone through this yet? So a few? Okay. Oh my gosh, so a lot of first timers yet. Okay, that's exciting. Yeah, I'm hoping you can take this in as much as possible and the rest of the museum, but I know the artist worked with another organization, FAN, Filipino American National Historical Society, where there's a chapter here in Seattle. So they do a lot of archiving of like Filipino history. And so there's quite a lot of photographs and even photos of the boxes of like particular people that the organization has just documents on. So, dating as far back, like Filipinos have been migrating, I think, as early as the 1920s, if not before. And so, I was just very moved by this exhibit. And then I think in particular, this photo right here of this like political newsletter that says, "Finish the Unfinished Revolution." I think something that really stands out to me is this captures so much of the migration of the Philippines. And then this portion right here reminds me of the fact that Filipinos had to leave the Philippines in the first place, often because they're seeking better opportunities somewhere outside of the Philippines because of the harsh conditions of the country that started as early as Spanish colonization. After Spanish colonization, America also came in, and then Japan came in, and then today they're still even independent on paper, but very much influenced by the U.S. culturally, militarily, economically, politically. So I just wanted to read a few poems that I think made me reflect on this piece in particular. So I'll start out with something that I wrote in response to this "Finish the Unfinished Revolution" quote, and then I'll go into two other poems. But so this is "Finish the Unfinished Revolution," very creative. And I'm just thinking about all the folks who are still actively fighting U.S. imperialism in the home country. So, finish the unfinished revolution. Even if Boeing supplies enough Scan Eagle drones for the president to spy on every activist in the Philippines, even if he puts our faces on 1,000 wanted posters, land defenders, human rights advocates, teachers, hangs them at every palenque and bus terminal, tags us terrorists, even when the most courageous and determined of us are disappeared, even when our dead are returned to us with holes in their bodies big enough to fit a sunrise through them, we will finish the revolution until every mango grown on our islands stays there, until every domestic worker in Saudi Arabia returns home, until every bomb crater becomes a rice field. Dole snaps a rubber band around 1 billion pesos in its pockets. A pineapple farmer in Mindanao is paid in a wad of air. We grab our bolos, wipe them clean, and rush towards the factory. I'll read two shorter poems, but I actually wanted to start with a really quick sentence or two from something my grandpa wrote. My grandpa, he migrated in 1945 during Japanese occupation. He was 18 years old, and his dad wanted him to have a better life somewhere else. And he wrote this speech called 50 Years in America, and he read it at the FON's National Conference in 1998 in Portland, Oregon. And so I thought this would be a fun way to kind of tie in some of what's going on. So I'll read this, and then I'll go into a poem about him. He says, the U.S. Army had returned to Manila in February 1945, and by July, schools reopened. I went to Central Escolar University, a women's school but was made co-ed when liberation came. Unknown to me, my father was looking for a way for me and my brother to go to the United States. My father did not tell us what to do in America, just to get there. And somehow, my grandpa finds places to sleep after Japan invades, after Diane Seuss and K.B. Brookins. An American armada, one sheetless cot aboard a cargo ship. The cook tells him he doesn't like Filipinos. My grandpa stands in his briefs, soaked from swimming in the deepest part of the Pacific, dripping. The atomic bomb flattens Hiroshima. A hotel room in San Francisco's Chinatown. The owner, Filipino, born in the same province my grandpa is from. Both remember the smell of every river before the Death March. A Holly Park bench after asking in his best American accent for a raise. And instead, his manager offered $2 to wash his house windows facing Lake Washington. 1962 at the Seattle World's Fair, in the Coliseum shade, before his son is crowned FYA Little King, Paul, or Pablo in Spanish, after his dad, who didn't tell him what to do in America, just to get there.
Wow.
I'll end with this poem. It's called Despedida for the Last Despedida. Despedida translates roughly into like a going away party. And so the idea is to have the last going away party for all going away parties, so Filipinos don't have to leave anymore. There's about 6,000 to 7,000 Filipinos who leave the Philippines every day looking for work. So you'll find them in, the U.S., Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, Australia, all over the world. Many of them in the same industries: domestic workers, caregivers, fast food, healthcare. And so, hopefully one day we can fight and see a country where there's actually enough livelihood for people to stay. So this is Despedida for the Last Despedida after Natasha Trethewey. In the Philippines, we abolish goodbye parties for Filipinos who don't want to leave, become overseas Filipinos. Every colonizer wants to be remembered. See our country, whose name is a Spanish king's name, Philip in Filipino. The smell of mined dirt is gone. Chevron swims back to America weeping. We watch, laughing, us Filipinos. In a monsoon, we bring Andreas Bonifacio's glowing bones to a sugar plantation. There, an army of peasant Filipinos. Their first 53 years spent lovingly burying piles of landlords. Every bloomed mango belongs to a farming Filipino. My grandpa left and didn't come back. Years later, I lay in the river he washed in. My body, like his, Filipino. His last name is my middle name, Berzosa. Spanish, as am I, and millions of breathing Filipinos.
Whoa. Yeah, we're going to stay here for our next reading.
Yeah, can we give it for namaka?
Hi, I'm Namaka. I'm just so honored to be here. Thank you, Frye Art Museum, and Anna and Amy. And I'm just so happy to be here. Amy actually was my 8th grade English teacher, and so I think I'm like as close to Nepo baby status as I'm just, so honored to be here, and this exhibit in particular really called to me. Just coming in here is so moving, especially this, as Troy spoke about it. When I first toured the exhibit with Amy, I immediately thought of the difference between a hoard and a collection, and how the difference is what we find value in. What do we find value in a collection? Because to others, this could just be a hoard of pictures and random assortments of papers, and instead I see a vision of surviving people and of livelihood. And I specifically thought of my great-grandfather, who's from the Philippines. He immigrated in the early 1900s from Manila, and I don't know, I think I see his face in a lot of this. I see my grandma in a lot of this. And I hope you see family members in every part of this exhibit. And that's how I felt very familial being here and thinking of family. And so I'm going to read a couple little guys. Let's see. I didn't really think in order, so give me a moment, guys. The first one I wrote is actually, as I toured, I saw this, and there's also some other fruit in the neighboring part of this exhibit. And I thought about the migration of fruit, specifically pineapples, and my great-grandfather immigrated to Hawaii to work on sugar plantations. My grandfather then worked on pineapple plantations. And I thought of pineapples and, I don't know, the grief of being pulled from the soil the way that our immigrant families are pulled and forced to migrate, or they have to for work. So this is about a pineapple. And I got really into pineapples and watched like an insane amount of videos about pineapples being harvested. I highly recommend. Very interesting. But this is the story of a pineapple. The young pineapple plants are separated from the mother tree trunk, and then they will be transferred to new lands. And when passed from worker to worker, briefly the arch of arms and hands outstretched become an altar. For a moment, something to be worshipped, as close to flight and fall before the sky is eaten by a shadow. And when placed in metal trucks, stacked and crowded, one after the other, does it feel more mass grave or exodus? And if asked, what would be your birth? The first bloom of seed into leaf, or the practiced exhale of a man before violent upheaval? How many different sounds do you hear before you recognize it as an attempt of your own name? And who will mourn what is grown to be consumed? With your most intimate prospect being the knife, and the drip of sweet sweat down elbow. The fruit grows from the center of the plant with sword-like leaves surrounding. And before needing protection, were the leaves ever just pretty and beautiful, and not a hindrance to hunger, and not a mother unsuccessful a barricade to its child in its nest? Yeah, that's a kind of And my next poem is really inspired by this piece right here. Maybe I'll migrate a little bit. So I would love everyone to just take this piece in. Stephanie, the artist that did this exhibit, took a bunch of photos from the Smithsonian Art Museum into, as you can see, into this archival on this portion and out there. And this one is of 11 Filipino women in native dress taken by Alexander Allen, who was a photographer that went around the Americas, around North America, taking photos of immigrants to show humanity in immigrant populations. And this just really spoke to me, to see a human version of Filipinos and of immigrants versus what you see in the exhibit next to us, where she's covering the faces of all of the people that were taken in a much more exploitive way. And when I looked at this, I thought of The Last Supper, of a collection of people and how they are having a meal of their own and an enjoyment of their own. And there's something holy in simply being with one another. So this is The Last Supper is just a supper. Wrong page, y'all. Give me a minute. Found it. Okay. Somewhere, men feast on themselves as a ritual. Burning flesh curls into a cross and becomes a god. Finding refuge in the brief stride of a prophet, searches for solace in a barren plate. were you told you've been fossilized into sainthood? A breathing portrait of an unlearned religion, where holiness is found in searching gazes, and the highest octave of a woman's laughter. Pressed between a wide-set nose and stretched lips sits salvation. Woven cloth begins to weave itself back in reunion. Begins to billow a crowded room, the caress of flower and bloom to bare skin, the rebirth of divine creation. I just love this photo so much, and I hope you guys do too. Okay, let's see here. And try to decide where I should take y'all on this adventure. I think I'll do this poem where, as I was sitting here and looking at the pictures, again, I was thinking about a hoard versus a collection and how, I don't know, just how beautiful it is to collect things, but how mortal objects also die. And I think that, you know, these pictures can be treated as a person as well. And they are something to be mourned when we lose them, just as they are people to me, that they are photographs. So this one is about photographs. When home was more curiosity than shame, and the rest of me was 4 years away, I discovered a universe contained in 2 mildewed boxes, crammed together of dust and particles, a story told in snapshots. My mother at prom, a man wearing my brother's face, contorts her body into his outline. My brothers are still soft and smooth-faced. They hold me like a gift. A volcano erupting, melting into the sea. Letters in a language we weren't taught. My grandfather is years away from me, shirtless, holding a 3-foot fish. And at his funeral, he is in those boxes. There is more of him in there than he is in his urn. Can he smell the mildew? Can he feel the cardboard? In this orbit, in this echo of an orbit, I become the crater that exists next to the crater made by a meteor. As the photo becomes a burial, then what else is its purpose than to prove something once existed? And I feel a capsized boat. As the tide washes over me, I wonder if these objects will be as mourned as he was. Thank you, and I think
Hi everyone, I'm Jen. This is like a dream to be able to come in here and look at art and be able to respond to it and share it. It's like this transformational energy that I feel like I do myself, like when I go to but to be able to share it with you all. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And I was profoundly moved by all of the work that's currently on display at the Frye. And so they're all well interrelated. I'm going to start here with a poem that directly speaks to Stephanie's work that I lead through. But what I was really struck by was the work with the archive, the work with ancestors, the reaching back and reaching forward. Like what does the future need from us? And that felt very present to me in all of the work, you know, just so. So this first poem, it's a poem that is written in the form of a pantoum, which a pantoum is a form in which there's repetitive lines. There's a very specific, strict rule to it. But the truth is, a pantoum is a colonized version of poetry. It was originally a Malay folk song form in the 15th century, and in the 18th, 19th century, French and English poets started getting really into it. And so I've written a pantoum, but it's a broken pantoum.
because if we're writing it in English in this tradition, it's broken. It's just, that's what it is. And I also work in archives for writing and other, I'm also a visual artist. And I've been working on an archive with my aunt's work in the past. And so I have 4 lines lightly edited from my Aunt Marcia's work as a third wave feminist, somewhat misguidedly trying to reclaim goddess mythology in the universe. So I'm trying to process it and kind of trying to like maybe bring it into the future in a way where we're creating something that is more inclusive and revoicing context. So this is a broken pantoum for the artist working in the archive. This is for Stephanie with 4 lines lightly edited from Marcia Patrick. Something will break in translation. Memory, like film, will fog into a cloud. To see backward, one must look forward. To look forward, you must look backward. Memory, like film, will fog into a cloud. These few fragments are all that I have left to share. To look forward, you must look backward. You recarve these walls to reveal the truth. Beyond these few fragments are all I have left to share. An archive is as stable as a hall of mirrors. You recarve these walls, reveal the truth beyond in a language shared forwards and backwards. An archive is as stable as a hall of mirrors. In reversal, it can be a redistribution of power. In a language shared forwards and backwards, to honor our, you were, I am, we. A double horizon, infinite and present. To see backward, one must look forward. To honor our, you were, I am, we. A double horizon, infinite and present. To look forward, you must look backward, for something will break in translation. An archive is a mirror to break in translation. Something to see, one must look, break. Translation, our, you were, I am, we. So outside here is the work of Samantha Wall, Space to Grow, which I think is on, it's on a banner on Warren Avenue. It's enormous and gorgeous. I hope that you all take some time with these pieces when you go through both individually and as a whole. And I felt a lot of inspiration in looking at them as movements, even though they're static panels. And also as a multiracial person thinking about the box. She's working with a Korean goddess and an African goddess, and the way that you can use mythology to kind of analyze like liminal identities, like the in-between spaces. That's something I'm very interested in, kind of looking into what those stories can tell us as we converge them and merge them together. And so I was deeply inspired to write this poem, which is called When the Only Option They Give Me Is to Check Other. All right. 1. From your perspective, you see what might look like a tidy and discreet option. What you won't see is how I spiral out beyond these walls, how there is no end to the three-dimensional plane between us. When I say spiral, I mean wait for time to unravel, and I always go with the flow. Once upon a time, the box became a category, but they forgot to close that box. 2, where I begin, where time begins, I wait. Sometimes I don't know how much I am holding, how many ancestors. A simple question, can you walk? An answer, my legs waiting. 3, it seems like the audience wants a clear explanation. How much of me do you want to be made legible to you? I ask the audience, how much detail can I keep to myself, keep under wraps, not have to explain body taut and tensioned, ready? 2 hands, 3 hands, How to juggle the work of limbs contained within my own armature. How when I stretch I am longer than the horizon. How you choose to only see me from this one vantage when my depths are infinite. Whose arms? Whose legs? I'm never alone. 4. As long as a sentence constructed from at least 2 languages, bodies and orb frozen and limbed, a momentary pause in a lineage for a recognition. One arm reaches for another leg, toes etched with fine details, capillaries distinct and tender. I must be moving too fast for you to register the distinct anchors of shoulder and pelvis, an overfull and absolute will. I am treasured, untranslatable, all mine, abundance. Please take time with the work. It's so beautiful in the hallway there. And then I have 2 short ones about the work in this room. The first one, altar's coming up a lot today, and this one is about the altar. It was initially instigated by the Chinese altar student in the room. It is also in reference to Behemoth by Antonia, which is on the far wall, which I went to the talk where she spoke about her work, and that's kind of talking about her mother and father's work and kind of where she sits in layering her lineage in a not totally explicit way of talking about it, in the materials that she's using. And then I'm also incorporating a translation of the poem Gazing at the Peak by Du Fu, which I happen to have this practice of translating Chinese poetry. Whenever I remember, it's supposed to be every day, but I don't do it every day. And this happened to be the next one in the book, so I was like, oh, whoa, that one actually reminds me of that painting. Okay, it's called Upon the Altar. What was the first elder like? To find out, begin in the night, a circle of stars. How they form spells through chi. The green landscape will seem boundless. You can almost see the edge of grass, submerged, memories that create and transform something as precious as a flower into an energetic brushstroke, like writing a poem in the sky. Yin and yang burst through. Whirling a cosmos, this hand-forged process reveals how the mountain heaves, leaves clouds in its wake. Shattering mist, opaque, soft, shorn off in strong shoulders. In the corner of the mountain's eye, the birds return. Early, they cross the border of the canvas from back to front and break open the sky. And when I finally climb to the top of the mountain, I watch as their wings push the night towards morning to take it all in one gaze. All of the mountains below, I know, will be small. And the past will bow with me as I rest my head upon the soil, trees spinning on vapor trails in the sky. And one last short one. This one is after Fugue, which is on this wall right over here. And again, the materials, she spoke of a materials-based process, and I was thinking about in poetry, what are our materials, and it's experience, it's life, but it actually is no different for materials-based artists. Like, we're all kind of just expressing it in different ways and different mediums. And so I was kind of thinking about that, about memory and material. This one is called Gleam, Glimmer, Glint, Glow, Radiation, and Reflection. On a sheet of metal, light hardens into shapes, deepens into shadows while light dances upon the page. Life happens like this. In between the layers of daily life, sleep, gleam of time, what I remember anchors me in these glimmers I can touch. A lapping of water upon my body, above the stars wandering glass high over the water, the sky a fixed altar, glint imprinted over a fluid ocean. I walk into this gently waved cove. Overhead my arms reach up until my fingertips touch the top of the water. My body long as seagrass, waves pushing my torso one way and my legs the other. I swim back to the shore, surface into the air in a chandelier of droplets, all of the silhouetted stars above in echo, running down my skin, aglow falling to my feet. How does my body remember how to swim, no matter how long it's been? How does Antonia reverse silver's hold upon a proton and light back into that particle? The composition of remembering, a cloud of grain that reluminates and radiates each stroke, each echo, repeat. The waves, they keep me in the present. This is heaven reflected in the small things, the dry sand under my feet, the layers of earth that stack time under the shore, deep from where the first images emerged. Welcome, Justine.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm so impressed by this crowd. It's amazing. And thank you to the Frye. Thank you, Anna and Amy, for organizing this and curating it. And thank you to the other readers. I'm so honored to be in conversation with you. And the conversation to the art, too, is really cool. So thank you. My name's Justine. I have been writing poems on envelopes. And I'm going to read, I have 3 that I have written in the past. I felt that they were in conversation with mainly the art in here. And then I'll read 3 bits that are specifically I wrote while thinking about the art specifically. Were I talented, were I talented, were I talented, would I have talents, would I have talents? This next one is inspired by The Little Mermaid, but the creepy original Hans Christian Andersen version. And I thought it was appropriate relating to the nautical themes in the exhibit. I charge you to make a perfume that smells, stinks, reeks of the sea, none of sunscreen or sand or the cleanness of salt flats in the arsenic city. In a few years from now, how can you breathe while on land your legs will feel like knives when dancing? With every step we love ourselves on the white screen, the rust in the carriage underbelly. I charge you not, don't make that Holy Ghost perfume, just glue without the wine, without the rose, fail or not the ocean, and you will turn to sea foam, the scent, a knife from your sisters, and the kelp bulbs jellied and bandied on the flea jittered and jiving shore, the scent, a knife to remember, the scent, a knife to kill the one you love the most. Or so I sent you not to be sought, to be so besotted, to preen like that, to flirt, to flop, to burn, to prattle, to smell so bad like them and not come back. Sepia sky for your sorrow. A tiny dream of tiny daffodils, and you, so sweet in spring, my mind tries to protect me. Okay, so poems from the exhibit. This poem, I was thinking a lot about those sculptures back there where Antonia Quo carved the shape out of wax, and then the wax gets dipped into a tub of ceramic slurry, and then it gets lifted out, and then usually the wax gets melted out of the middle, and then metal gets poured into the ceramic mold, and then in the process of making the metal, the ceramic is destroyed. But in keeping it as the ceramic, the sparkly sculpture thing, keeping it that, it's I think she explains it better, but it's wanting to keep this space and memory of that transitory state, and then honoring the wax that was once in the ceramics. So I was thinking about that, and then also there's different sculptures by Martin Wong and Antonia Quo that they've put in their mother's garden, and there's so much thinking about their mother. And I've tried to write this poem for years on a computer, and it didn't work, so I think it works in an envelope. I don't think I ever loved her more than the time I ran out into the storm to pluck summer hail from the grass, and she popped them in her mouth, and they rattled against her teeth. That one of her favorite stories is that her teacher once said, "Auwae, you have tiny ears." That my sister and I have the same tiny ears, all allergic to almost everything except gold. That Papa has worn in her tiny ears the same pair of stud earrings, flakes of rounded gold like seashells for years. That if I don't make it home in summer, I miss all her choy, the yam leaves, squash leaves, the choy grown from seeds from Jess's grandpa, choy you can't buy anywhere, the best apple pears, the tomatoes, the maijelan, gardenias, jasmines, plumeria. So I try to. This one is sort of responding to this and the sort of starry look of it. The heartbreak. Did it come first, or the cottonwood fluff? Or always at the same time, starry white at first drifting, then piled at the edges of the grass on tufts of dirty fur kicking around. And this last one, I spent a lot of time stalking out this Twilight Child piece, really thinking about it. And I also wrote that, because I'm a procrastinator, I was writing this last night while listening to this incredible cellist in the group Dyad, Cam, and commentary maintenance. But it was so amazing, so I was responding to this, the cello music. And there's a word in here, la faena, a Spanish word meaning the performance at the end of a bullfight where the matador kills the bull. Still, to distill the chaos will, to stalk, to swing, to bound around the bull ring. La faena, mi faena is internal. These months, the flora repeating on, eternal. You can't pass without the crush of them. I mean, crush them, stab me, I can take it, I can take it. The shape still, split lip, and the story of islands. If we become our own extinct species, behemoth, with terrifying ribs each, but the same dreams of twilight, of walking against the sky, then bent over from the wind. Hasn't it been seismic, so inchoate, what we have seen of it? Thank you.
Feeling it. I don't think it's bubbling right now. I hope you do something with that impulse, whether it's just like sing a song in the car on the way home, jot down some words, get out those watercolors, do something with that. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to the Frye. This is really exceptionally special to have this beautiful free museum open to anyone, and then to have this invitation to get to be in conversation, to get to bring our art into this space. So thank you again so much, Anna, for this opportunity. And thank all of you. I encourage you to linger. This art is incredible. Spend some time with it if you have the opportunity. Enjoy yourself.